Senate President Sweeney and Senator Weinberg. The Senate of the State of New Jersey is pleased to honor and salute the Polio Network of New Jersey upon the occasion of World Polio Day.
Thank you for putting forth this resolution. I thank the advocates who are seated back here. We are glad that in the Senate we are able to call attention to this, and we thank you for your advocacy on behalf of this important issue. Thank you.
Hi, this is Rich Lee from the Hall Institute of Public Policy, and welcome to the Hall Institute Public Forum. We have a special episode for you today. We're coming to you from the State House, and we have two guests with us from the Polio Network of New Jersey, and I'd like to introduce Joan Swain, who is the Vice President, and Lee Bakir, who is the President. Hopefully I said your last name correctly. Welcome to the Hall Institute Forum.
Thank you.
Okay. Wanted to start off when I first learned about your organization and all the different things you did. It kind of maybe took me back to my past and maybe showing my age, but polio was a disease I was very aware of growing up. We had the vaccines, and you don't hear that much about it today, but obviously I know one of the reasons you're down here in the State House is to increase awareness. So I was wondering if you could maybe, for people who may be a little younger, explain what polio is and, maybe some of the history, how, the vaccine, did come along, apparently, did a good job, but, has not completely eradicated the disease. So I don't know if one of you wants to just give a quick overview of what polio is.
Polio was a terrible scourge before the vaccine. There were so many people who were attacked each year, and in many cases they were left with paralyzed limbs. They would often end up in an iron lung, and certainly those with paralyzed legs would end up with braces and crutches, and many with wheelchairs. So polio was something that people were very afraid of because it did occur every summer at some point or other. Sometimes a really bad year, you'd find something like 50 to 60,000 people would contract polio. Not all would have lasting results, but that's a large number. And then in one of the quieter years, maybe 5,000. But it was something that was terrifying to people.
Right.
And worldwide today, the polio virus is still around, and that's one of the major diseases that they're looking to have eliminated. And there's much effort at this point. The Rotary International and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation are two organizations doing a lot to try and...
Okay. So there's still research actively underway to try to completely eradicate the disease.
Correct.
That's good to hear. Now, I know you're, like I said, down here at the State House to try to increase awareness. What sort of things have to be done so more people are more aware that polio is still out there? Lee, you want to?
Well, we have a website. Well, what happens is that people who have had polio in the past don't realize that there's something called post-polio syndrome, which is something that comes along and kind of bites you in the butt 30, 40 years after you've had polio. You think that you've lived through it, whether it was with crutches or leg brace or even if you were in a wheelchair. Most people do lead regular, normal life. And then they find out later on that something is wrong with them, but they're not quite sure that it's actually polio related. And can you elaborate on that?
An important reason why people should know about post-polio syndrome, and I guess we should define it now for the audience.
Because there's actually physical symptoms too, isn't it? Yeah.
It is. Yes, it's symptomatic. And at the original polio was the result of a cause, the virus that would attack the nerves in the body, and it depended on which nerves were attacked as to what the effect would be, the final effect. And so what is happening with post-polio is that when those nerves were affected, the muscles involved, those nerves put out new shoots, and they took on the equivalent of, twice the load that they had previously had. So after somebody has lived that way for 30 or 40 years, that extra load on the nerve cells is wearing them out, totally wearing them out, and then they don't work after that. And
Well, an example would be somebody who has polio and was walking with crutches their entire life. Well, then what happens is that your shoulders are compensating for your legs.
Okay.
So of course, then you end up with shoulder pain. And many polio survivors, if you ask them, have actually had rotator cuff surgery to repair that situation.
you have gone through
I had both shoulders done.
Yeah.
Right.
And I know when you look at the numbers, fortunately not that many actually have polio anymore, but the numbers for people with post-polio syndrome seem to be quite high, aren't they?
Right. The figure that we have for New Jersey is between 16 and 17,000 people. So that's a pretty big number.
Yeah.
Well, post-polio syndrome, but then there's about 30,000 who have just had polio or still have polio, not realizing, or maybe they're lucky and haven't even gotten or won't get to that point of post-polio syndrome.
Okay.
And quite interestingly, when you originally had polio and got to the rehab stage, the treatment was to really push to get back all of your original movements. And just the opposite is true with post-polio syndrome. So if somebody thinks, well, I don't know, my muscles are getting weak, I better go back and get exercise, and they go through, and what they're doing by using that same formula of pushing, and use it or lose it kind of thing, they're just damaging the nerve cells that are still there.
I see.
So it's a question of pacing and working with someone really who understands post-polio syndrome, so that you do exercise, which is important, because if you don't exercise, then you have non-use problems and get weak for that. So it's a very careful balance that you should follow.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, I think it's important to work with somebody who recognizes post-polio syndrome. And I know in Lee's case, you did suffer from post-polio syndrome, and I think what I read on your bio that you were diagnosed with Lyme disease or some other things. It took a while to have it detected.
And if you speak to other people who also have post-polio syndrome, you'll see the stories are very similar. They'll have this onset of conditions, and they'll think that, geez, I'm just working too hard, or I must have twisted this or maybe that, and what happened with me was just that. And I went to see doctors, and initially they said, well, I was too stressed out from the job. When was the last time I took a vacation? I said, well, I really don't take vacation. Oh, you have to take a vacation. And they tested for Lyme disease. And then eventually I found out through a friend about the Polio Network of New Jersey. And I got hooked up with them, and I was speaking to the president at that time. And she was talking to me, and it was like she knew me. She knew all my symptoms. It was the exact same. It was like a miracle. How could this person know all these things that are wrong with me? And there's a lot of people out there who still are not aware that this exists, that they have post-polio syndrome. And the thing is, because it occurs in older people, they may just think that it's something else because of age. They say, well, it happens to everyone. Which it does, but if you have had polio in the past, you should really ask your doctor. And that's the other thing that we want to do, is to bring awareness to the medical field, not to be misdiagnosed.
Yeah. Now, Joan, did you have a similar experience, or?
Yes, I noticed that I wasn't able to do stairs as well as I used to. I couldn't go distances. I've always used crutches and braces after the initial polio, but I got around very well that way. But I did notice that things weren't quite as good. And it was just about that time in the early 1980s that for the first time this was publicly spoken of. And I remember talking to friends of mine who had had polio, and they said, there was buzz about that there's something's going on with the bodies of these people. And there was a scare, is the polio coming back again? Is the polio there? They did test and find that no, it was not polio coming back, but it was these syndrome
that you were describing before.
As a result, exactly. And just about that time, the New York Times, this is what I remember distinctly, around 1983, there was a New York Times, and the magazine section on Sunday had Dr. Laura Halstead on the cover. And that was, of course, the cover story. And Dr. Halstead had had polio as a young man, and he was also a clinician out in Houston. And he noticed in himself these symptoms, and he noticed in patients that were coming in. And that was the real item, the article, the whatever, that brought this to the public in this area anyway. And so at that point, people began to really take a look at it.
Right. Yeah, well, I know your organization is doing its part too. You want to talk a little bit about the Polio Network and the different, activities or programs that you
here's the
have?
president.
I'll start out with Lee.
Sure.
Yeah,
Newly elected president.
Yeah, but I know you have a big role too. We're going to talk about it as well.
Well, pay is great.
Yeah.
There is no pay.
Yeah.
Nonprofit.
I developed and maintained the website, which is the Polio Network of New Jersey, www.njpolio.org. And since our presence there, we have had people actually come to us, through the website and ask information, saying that they've had polio and they're feeling fatigued, many of the other conditions that we just mentioned. And we help them by getting them to see the right doctors. We supply them with information. We also have conferences, which Joan can actually elaborate on that. We have guest speakers who are very knowledgeable with post-polio syndrome. Some of the topics that we've had in the past.
Shoulders was a very large topic that we had. Exercise it's always a topic that's of interest. And well, there are any number of them. And the interesting thing is that we have, with the website, Lee has put up a multimedia page now, so that, and what he's doing is televising, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, we have people who have
Taping.
been, our guest speakers of the past. We ask them to give us their presentations. So I'll take their presentation and I'll put it up there on the website with their audio. We never had video, but we're hoping to change that maybe the next time around.
Yeah.
And but you put their PowerPoints up so that somebody, anyone around the country, or of course around the world really, could go to our website and see these, or hear these doctors talking about issues that are very important to us, and these are experts in their field.
Yeah.
We also have a quarterly newsletter that we put out. Yes.
For many years, I understand.
Edited for the life, pretty much the life of the organization, which we did celebrate our 20th year last year. Thank you. We're now of age. We're 21 this year. And we also have, I guess, I'm trying to think of other things that we supply people with. But one important thing is we haven't mentioned all the symptoms of post-polio. I think it's about time. We're always going off on a tangent.
Sure.
But the most common symptoms are increased muscle weakness, pain in the muscles or the joints, fatigue, breathing and swallowing problems, and cold intolerance. Those are the main ones, and they're pretty much in the order that I gave them as far as the frequency. And we are very concerned about the medical community not understanding, not realizing post-polio and post-polio symptoms. So one of the aspects of this public awareness program that we've just are undergoing now is to reach as many of the medical community and other healthcare groups. We're looking toward nurses as well as and pharmacists and anyone who would be coming in contact with people with the symptoms that we describe as post-polio, and meet them through their particular forum, whatever that would be. And to do this, we've engaged professional PR group, the MWW group, in a New Jersey group, and they are setting us up with these organizations so that we can try our best to get the news out to everybody. letting them know that there is help for their problem, and that's the main purpose of the polio network.
Right, yeah, and that's certainly important,
Yeah.
as we've seen, because I think even, people with polio might not even be aware of the
Exactly.
symptoms, and if they're not, physicians are not, and, yeah. So, there's also, I guess I was looking on your website, October 24th is World Polio Day. Or
Yes.
is that something along the same lines to create more awareness?
That is one that we were actually surprised. Paul Aronson, who is our contact at MWW, found it.
Oh, okay.
He found it on the calendar. We didn't know it existed. This is not the first year for it, but we are certainly tagging along on that too. It was set up through the United Nations, I guess.
I see.
As part of their effort to draw attention, to
Yeah.
polio worldwide. But we're piggybacking on it in the U.S., and I noticed there was a Facebook page on it,
Okay.
and so everybody out there, like World
like it.
Polio Day,
Yeah.
like it, and it'll get a large number.
Okay.
And-
I think we also, for people, I know they can log on to the webpage, find out more about it. Is there a phone number or an email
Yes.
address if people want to contact you directly?
The phone number is right on the website.
Okay.
I don't know it offhand.
I
Okay.
have
It's
it
a
right
201.
here.
Okay.
It is
201 and 7 other numbers.
That's right.
201-845-6860. And the email is, well, you would do the email, is info@njpolio.org. And that can be sent directly from the website or just put it in your
And
search.
I'd like to say something
Sure,
else
please.
about the Polio Network of New Jersey. We are a nonprofit. None of the board members get paid. We operate solely through membership and through donations. So donations are always welcome. And you can contact anyone through the website.
And we're a 501c3 organization.
Okay,
So
so
it's
get your
deductible.
tax break there.
That's
too.
our
Okay.
tax break.
How large is the organization? I know you have a couple of chapters.
We have
and threads.
900 on our mailing list. And that's not just New Jersey. We do people from the surrounding states, the tri-state area.
And parts of Canada as well.
Yeah, will come to our conferences if they know that they're important speakers. So we have 900, and we have 8 support groups.
I see.
Right. Well, that's right. Yeah. That was a very good question because the 8 support groups. That's who I had called the first
Right,
time when
okay.
I found out. I found the support group, and which was a part of the Polio Network of New Jersey, and they're scattered throughout the state. And there's always one near somebody, and of course, anyone can always attend any other support group. They don't have to attend the one that's closest
Right.
to them.
So,
I have a list of them here. Why don't I read them all?
yeah, why don't you go through them?
Let
If people are
people know.
watching, they'll see where they are.
It's alphabetical. Atlantic County area, Bergen County, Essex Union area, Monmouth County, Morris County, Ocean County, Raritan Valley, which is Somerset and Hunterdon counties, and Southwest Jersey area, which is in Voorhees. So it's outside of Camden.
I see. Okay.
It should be on the screen right about here.
Okay. Okay. So I wanted to ask you one general question. We've seen, even though polio, as we've discussed, still exists, and there's still research underway, but certainly the vaccine was tremendously successful, and you see the dramatic decrease in the numbers. Is there a lesson to be learned there, maybe for some of the other diseases that we're fighting today, like cancer, AIDS, that if you research, there may be a cure out there?
I don't know how much research is being done.
Okay.
Just because of the dwindling number.
Right.
When you talk about
Right. But I'm thinking of, if people point to polio, here was a disease that affected thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people, and now that, because of the vaccine, it's down to a few hundred. Is it a sign of hope for maybe some of these other diseases that we're working on now?
We had one virus, I guess, or
Yeah.
several viruses. We're same family. And I guess when you talk about something like heart disease and
Right, yeah.
cancer, they're so multiple
I see,
organ
yeah.
that there might not be one quick shot.
Right.
But I don't know, maybe in the case of Alzheimer's, who knows, from what we're reading these days. And there's also the hope of stem cell,
Right.
the possibilities, and I understand some stem cell research is actually that we had an instance recently, a case recently, which was the first official attempt to use stem cell. I would say that's the area that would be probably the most possible. But we're always looking for something that would piggyback over to
Right. No, looking to end on an optimistic note.
Oh.
But I want to thank you for joining me here today.
Thank you.
Okay. You're doing
pleasure.
great work at the Polio Network, and I think more people should know about it. So hopefully this will help out somewhat. You know, people will look at the website, and I know you have a busy day here in Trenton today, and hopefully
the resolution.
Yeah, you're going to be on the Senate floor, and lots of exciting things happening. So I thank you for
Exactly.
taking a few minutes out of your day to talk with me.
Thank
you
you
very much,
very
Rick.
much.
Thank
Okay. This is Rich Lee from the Hall Institute of Public Policy. You've been watching the Hall Institute Public Forum. Been talking with people from the Polio Network of New Jersey. Thanks for watching, and we'll hope you'll catch our next show.